345, that'll be our next song this morning. Number 345. It is well with my soul.
Amen.
Number 345. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, If you will, go ahead and mark in your songbooks, number 538, number 538. That'll be our song of invitation after the lesson. And before the lesson, we'll sing number 829, Mansion Over the Hilltop, number 829. 829. Let y'all turn yonder way. People are still flipping. 829. I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold, but in that city where the ransom will shine, I want a gold one, that silver line. I've got a mansion just over the hill. streets that are pure as gold, though often tempted, tormented and tested, and like the prophet, my pillow a stone. And though I find here no permanent dwelling, I know he'll give me a mansion my own. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold. Don't think me forlorn, deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged, I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of a city. I want a mansion, a robe and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we'll never more wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold. Can y'all all hear me from this microphone, or do I need to pass the wireless? Am I good? Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a blessing to be back.
Good morning.
Let me open my Google Docs real quick. Here we go. Okay. So, if you could have one earthly thing today, what would you want?
Yeah. Amen.
I can tell you what I'd want. I want a $99,000 Ford F-250 Tremor with all the off-road packages. If I could go pick up the keys right now, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Those Tremors are beautiful. They're an off-road master. I mean, they come with rear lockers, the whole 9 yards. Everything you can think of. Sway bar upgrades in the front, everything. You know, oftentimes as humans, we think a lot about the material things that we have in our lives. Oh, I have a nice house. You know, I really wish I had this. I really wish I had that. Man, if I had done this different, I could have had this. Oftentimes, we think a lot about material things in our life. It's, you know, human nature. But how often do we uncoincidentally and accidentally idolize something? I love my truck. I could sit here and talk about my truck all day long. I put a ton of money into my truck. I mean, that thing was an absolute, like, rust bucket when I got it. And I've done nothing but work on it. But sometimes I think I fantasize a little bit too much about my truck. I mean, you can ask Carol, and all I do is talk about my truck. Am I wrong? I can sit there and talk about my truck for hours. I can go through every single little spec with you. Towing capacity, torque, horsepower to the wheel, how much PSI my turbo puts out, what turbo I've got in there, my EGR, my fuel cell upgrades, the whole 9 yards. I can go through everything with you. But sometimes that could be a problem. You know, sometimes we fantasize about things a little too much and idolize that over God. But we're going to look at an example of someone who had everything they could think of in the Bible. They were considered the greatest man in the East. This man had everything you could think of, yet not once did he idolize all of his earthly wealth. Rather, he praised God and said, you know what? I know that this comes from your hand. We're going to look at Job today. So turn with me to Job chapter 1. Job chapter 1. Oh, I left my Bible. So we all know the story of Job, right? Man has everything you could think of. Beautiful family, wealth, he's got livestock beyond number, and he's considered the greatest man in the East, and we see that in verse number 3. But we're going to start in verse number 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was blameless and upright, fearing God and turning away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters that were born to him. So this man's got a family. He's got 10 beautiful children. His possessions also were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camel, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkey, and very many servants. The man was the greatest of all men in the East. So if you could think of, in today's day and age, this is like the Steve Jobs of today. Man's got everything, right? Let's paint that picture here for a second. So when the days of the feast had completed their cycle, Job would send and consecrate them, rising up early in the morning and offering burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, perhaps my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continuously. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, have you ever considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil. Then Satan answered, Lord, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But put forth your hand now, and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not put forth your hand on him. So Satan departed and from the presence of the Lord. Going on in verse 13, it says, now the day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said that the Sabeans had attacked and took them. And they also slew all the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Going on in the passage, it talks about how all of his livestock is gone and how he has lost everything. Yet, Job did not curse God. You know, sometimes in life we idolize over things. You know, we put things and make them very important in our lives. But everything in this world is material. Everything that we have in this life, it might be tangible, but it's not eternal. And Job realized that. You know, I might have had all of these amazing things in my life, but they're not going to carry on with me to eternity. You know, I could go buy that $90,000 truck. I could go buy a $120,000 boat. I could buy myself all this fancy stuff. But how long is it going to last? Vehicles break. Guns jam eventually. Houses burn down. They fall apart. Clothes eventually fall apart. Everything on this earth eventually fades away. So why am I going to put myself in a position where I'm going to idolize something here when I can store for myself an inheritance in heaven? And that's our topic today, storing up for ourselves an inheritance in heaven. And that's what Job did. Job realized, you know, I might have all of these amazing things here, but if I trust in God and keep the faith and not worry about what happens here on earth, I'm building up for myself an inheritance greater than what I could receive here on earth. Now we look at a passage here in Matthew chapter 6, which is going to be our secondary passage for this morning. In Matthew chapter 6, we're going to read where Christ talks about storing up for ourselves an inheritance in heaven, right? Everyone knows the passage. It says, do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. You know, there's nothing wrong with having nice things on earth. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with having a nice house and taking care of yourself. But when you idolize it is when it becomes an issue. And that's what Christ is talking about here. Don't store up in earthly treasures, but store up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. If we let worldly things get to our heads, if we let the world get to our head, where's our heart lying really? Where's our heart truly at? It's in the world. It's here. Now, why would I want to put my heart in such a dark and twisted place, right? The world is like a landmine field, and it's pitch black. And the only people that have a flashlight are those in the body. Why am I going to leave myself far away from that light in a minefield where I can just step and boom, I'm gone, when I can get myself out and find a safer place, right? We know that heaven is going to be our eternity. It's going to be the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. There's not a thing here on earth that I think could ever and will ever compare to what heaven's going to be like. So why am I going to idolize something on earth and make something on earth bigger than my inheritance in heaven, right? Christ talks about later on in John, he says, in my Father's house are many mansions, and I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will bring you there also. He describes to us, as long as we keep our faith and we keep our eyes on the prize, that as long as we know that the place we're going is heaven and that's where we need to be, rather than enjoying our time on earth and pulling ourselves away from God, we're going to have all the riches we could dream of in heaven. We're going to be worshiping God every day through eternity with brothers and sisters in numbers that we can't even begin to comprehend. We'll be able to walk the streets of gold, and it's a beautiful idea. But oftentimes as humans, we kind of lose that eye on the prize. We all sin. We all fall short of the glory of God. We know that. You know, we get something new. We're super excited. We want to show everybody. My dad, I love my father, Father Garth. It's either a new TV, a new truck, or a new gun, right? He gets them and he loses it. He's like the most excited person in the world. He looks like a kid in a candy store. When I was like 14, my dad bought this 65-inch 4K TV. And he was so excited. He put it in the living room, wall mounts it. And he's like, Tiffany, I can watch all the football games. I can watch college football every Saturday and just sit here on my butt and not have to work and enjoy life. 3 days after he buys the TV and he mounts it, my mom buys this like wall piece to put up above the TV, right? My dad's like, fine, I'll do it. So he gets the ladder out and he's setting it up, and the ladder comes out from under him. And the top of the ladder goes right into the TV. Right into the TV. So he looks at it and he goes, guess I get to go buy a new toy. 30 minutes later comes back with a 70. Well, then the 70 breaks, and so now I think we have like an 85. But he loves his TVs. That man goes through TVs like nobody's business. And then he has to tell everybody when they come over, he's like, you see my new TV? Look at this. Look at the picture quality. And then he got a new truck, right? My dad had like a 2015 Silverado, and he retires, and all of a sudden he's like, I need a new truck. So he goes and buys a brand new Denali. Buys a brand new Denali, throws some rims on it, throws a leveling kit on it, and anywhere he goes, someone's like, oh, you got a nice truck? And he's like, oh, you like my truck? Let me tell you about it. And then he'll sit there for like 30 minutes. I'm not trying to say he idolizes it, but he kind of, he's got that little bit of a childish grin on him. And it can become an issue. We all get excited about new things in our lives. Like Carolyn, for instance, I got Carolyn a promise ring, like what, two months ago? Something like that. It was like right after my 21st birthday. I get her this promise ring. And I come home from the beach. My grandpa and I, we were ring shopping the whole weekend instead of having fun for my 21st. We spent like the entire weekend promise ring shopping. So I get her this promise ring, and I come home, and she already knew it was coming. She comes booking it out of her house. And she's like doing the whole little dance and everything, and she's like, where's my ring, where's my ring, where's my ring? And I'm like, I haven't even gotten out of the truck yet. Like, you haven't even given me a hug and said you missed me the whole week, and the only thing you're worried about is this ring. And then she's on Snapchat the whole time, like, look at what he got me. Oh my gosh, look at this ring. Yeah, you were. You FaceTime Charlie, and you're like, oh my God, look at it. I mean, everyone gets excited. And then she got me one, right? And it's got wood engraved in it. It's a beautiful ring. I mean, she got it for another reason, but like, I mean, we all fantasize about nice things in our lives. I love that ring. I'll show it to anybody. They say, you got a nice ring on your finger? And I'm like, yeah, look at it. Like, it's a nice ring. We fantasize as humans. We fantasize over things. And we don't always realize it. And that becomes an issue because now we're putting a stepping stone between us and God. We're putting a stepping stone between us and our inheritance. It happens all the time. Like when I got my tattoo, when I got my half sleeve done, right? I love tattoos. I absolutely love tattoos. I know a ton of people that like go and get tattoos. I've got a couple preacher buddies that have like a bunch of sleeves, and we're always talking about it in our little group chat we've got. And one of my buddies the other day, one of my preacher buddies from Bear Valley, got a giant crosspiece on his upper arm, and he's been like raving about it. And he's starting to get to that point where all he does is talk about it, and he's starting to idolize it. And as I was writing this sermon, I'm like, hey, buddy, so I'm writing this sermon. Can I ask you for a little bit of help? And then he started to realize, oh, that's what I'm doing with my life. It's a tendency. We all do it. It happens. But what we have to realize is that this inheritance that we have coming for us in heaven is far greater than anything we could have on earth. Yeah, it's nice to be financially stable in this life. I mean, who wouldn't like to be financially stable? Who wouldn't like to have a nice car in the driveway, nice furniture in the house, a nice little pool with a waterfall in the backyard to go relax in this 113-degree heat? We would all like to have nice things. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having nice things in this life, because there's not, as long as you don't idolize it. But what we have to realize is, looking at this passage in Matthew 6, why am I going to waste my time raving about things on this earth when I could be raving about this beautiful home that I'm going to when eternity comes? Why am I going to waste my time going out and buying a BMW with everything you could dream of, or buying a limited edition F-250 with heated and cooling seats and air ride? Like, why am I going to rave about that when I can say, you know what? I'm blessed. I may be blessed in my earthly life, but I'm going to be far more blessed in my spiritual life. I'm going to be far more blessed when I get to heaven, because I know that when I go home, I've got everything I could dream of waiting for me. There's a country song that came out not too long ago by Hardy, and he's talking about one of his buddies that died, and he says, I hope you hit those gold streets on two wheels, and I hope your mansion in the sky's got a 10-acre field. And that's just like the dream. He's talking about hitting some mud up in heaven. It's a fun song to listen to, but the first time I heard it, I was kind of sitting back and thinking, what is heaven really going to be like? And you can sit there and wonder for hours what your inheritance in heaven is going to be like, and I'm telling you right now, you'll still never figure it out. But that's the beauty of it. See, in this life, we can plan our own lives for ourselves. It's not always going to go how we want it to, but we can paint our picture as we want. But when we get to heaven, we still have no idea what it's going to look like. But from the way it's described, it's going to be beautiful. And that's one, and I hate surprises. I'll let you know now, I hate surprises. You can ask Carolyn. I hate surprises. Like my birthday, I found out what all of my presents were before they even got there, because I was like, listen, I hate surprises. You can just tell me what you got me, or I hate surprises. But heaven is one surprise I will wait for. Heaven is that one inheritance and that one surprise I cannot wait to see. I am the most impatient man on this earth. I can promise you that. I am so impatient when it comes to getting heaven, but I can't wait. I can't wait to meet that inheritance someday. Looking at that passage in John 14 where Christ describes how he's going before us to prepare these mansions, and then looking again at Mark 8. If you will turn with me to Mark chapter 8, this is going to be the last passage we're going to look at. Mark 8, verse 36. Let's start in verse 34. It says, and he summoned the crowd with his disciples and said to them, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. We're talking about how to get to this inheritance. Christ says, if you want this inheritance, if you want to take up this inheritance and follow after me, this is what you need to do. You need to deny yourself. You need to realize that everything you want in this earthly life really isn't it. We need to realize that all the fun things that this world has isn't always the best for us. He says, deny yourself, take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake and the Gospels will save it. Now let's think about that statement for a minute. Whoever loses his life for my sake and the Gospel's sake will save it. This statement is comparing earthly life to heavenly life. He's saying if you give up all of the worldly things, everything that the world deems right but is wrong, and follow after me, and realize that the second you come into the fold, you're building up for yourself an inheritance. You're going to save your life in the end. He says, for what does a man profit to gain the whole world but forfeit his soul? And what will a man give for the exchange of a soul? What are we going to profit if we've got all of the joy and happiness in the world but haven't worked a day in the Bible, haven't studied, we haven't built up a faith? What are we going to profit? Think about it. This world's got everything that a moth and rust and a thief can steal. Everything in this world's going to vanish eventually. What are we going to benefit in the afterlife if we've got everything in the world but lose our soul? We don't have anything for us. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no greater treasure on earth than anything in heaven. And we know that. There's quite a great amount of amazing things on earth. You know, fast cars, amazing houses, you know, guns that make big booms. I'm a big gun guy. I love guns. I love to hunt. There's so many I wish I could have, but I'm never going to get. But why am I going to waste my time on all these earthly things when I could be spending my time building up for myself an inheritance in heaven? The only thing I need to worry about in this life is my faith, my brothers and sisters' faith, and reaching out to build other people's faith outside of the body so that everyone can meet that inheritance, right? Paul says a couple different things about this. You know, he says when he gets towards the end of his life, he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. And when he's saying that, Paul went on 3 missionary journeys. Paul saw 23 countries in his 3 missionary journeys. And he started more churches than I can think of. I mean, the man is one of the only sole writers of the New Testament. He wrote a third of the New Testament by himself. They're all beautiful books. What he realized for himself in his conversion from Saul to Paul is, I'm not building forth for myself an inheritance. After he realized it for himself, he decides, it's time to preach. It's time to get out there and help one another. Brothers and sisters, we have to help one another like Paul helped all of those churches to keep building towards that inheritance, right? We keep each other accountable. Carolyn keeps me accountable more than I keep her accountable. But like, for example, I like to do a lot of stupid, crazy stuff. I like to do all kinds of stupid stuff. Bull riding, shotgun shooting with explosive ammo, like ditch shooting with explosive ammo, like all kinds of stupid stuff. And I'll be like, Carolyn, I'm going to go do this today. She's like, no, you're not. I don't know what you think you're doing with yourself. You are not doing that today. You want to die? She's like, you want to die? You want to drive stupid? No. She keeps me accountable. She keeps me safe. Because, you know, I like to do stupid stuff. But in the same note, why don't we keep each other accountable in our spiritual life? Like, that's a real-time issue in the body today. A lot of people are very, very, very closed off when it comes to their faith. You know, we'll come to church, we'll say, hi, how are you doing? It's nice to see you. You know, how are you doing? But how often do we sit down with another brother and say, how are you doing spiritually? Are you struggling? Is there something you're struggling with? What can I help you with? What can I do to make you a better Christian? What can I do to strengthen your faith so we can see that inheritance together? Because a lot of times we don't have that conversation. I know I've had that. I struggle with that. I mean, when do I walk up to people and I'm like, how is your faith? How are you doing? We don't do it. You know, and it's a real-time issue in the church today. And it's part of the reason as to why the church is starting to dwindle. You know, we're losing more numbers than we're gaining. That's an actual statistic. 33% of the Church of Christ yearly either has a death, there's a death in the congregation, somebody walks away, or somebody goes to another church. And we're only receiving 17% back in the body. The statistic was put out like a year and a half ago. We studied it at Bear Valley. That's kind of sad to think about. We're losing more people to denominational churches because it makes people feel good than we are bringing people in because we don't check in on one another. Brothers and sisters, we all want to get to that inheritance together, amen? So let's do each other a favor and let's keep checking on each other. You know, let's keep building each other up. You know, we have the invitation at the end of a lesson for a reason. And a lot of times people are scared to come up. And I'll offer the invitation, you know, if you are struggling in your faith, if you're having issues with your spirituality in some way, shape, or form, you're struggling with a sin, you're struggling with your prayer life, you're struggling with a passage you're trying to study, there are brethren here that are more than willing to sit down and help you. There are people that are going to be here to guide you, to help you. And if you haven't found Christ yet, let me tell you, it's going to be one of the most beautiful moments in your life when you do. Whatever your need may be, you have the invitation song?
Yes.
Okay. Whatever your need may be today, do come forward as we stand and sing.
538. Prepare to meet thy God. As you stand, if you are able, 538. Careless soul,
Why will you linger, wandering from the fold of God? Hear you not the invitation? Oh, prepare to meet thy God. Careless soul, oh, heed the warning, for your life will soon be gone. Oh, how sad to face the judgment, unprepared to meet thy God. Why so thoughtless are you standing, while the fleeting years go by, and your life is spent in folly? Oh, prepare to meet thy God. Careless soul, oh, heed the warning, for your life will soon be gone. Oh, how sad to face the judgment, unprepared to meet thy God.
number 4.
If you spurn the invitation till the Spirit shall depart, then you'll see your sad condition, unprepared to meet thy God. Careless soul, oh, heed the warning, for your life will soon be gone. Oh, how sad to face the judgment, unprepared to meet thy God.
I would like to ask prayers for myself. Whoever has prayer, can you just pray?